My family missed my birthday for the fifth year in a row. Then, exactly 7 days later, my mother emailed me a PDF invoice for my brother's yacht party. My name is Catherine Miller. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a senior marine insurance analyst in Annapolis, Maryland. I spend my days reviewing claims for damaged boats, fraudulent charter bookings, and wealthy people who think rules are optional because they own something with a deck and a champagne cooler. So when my mother sent me an invoice titled Brandon Birthday Yacht Split, I knew exactly what I was looking at before I even opened it. A request. A demand. A trap dressed up like family. The amount due was $3,000. Under the note section, my mother had written, "We split even here. Brandon deserves something special this year." I stared at those words while sitting alone at my kitchen island, 1 week after my own birthday had passed without a call, without a card, without even one fake group chat message pretending they remembered. 5 years in a row, they had forgotten me. 5 years in a row, I had told myself they were busy, stressed, distracted, human. But somehow, nobody was too busy to plan a yacht party for my brother. Nobody was too stressed to reserve a private charter, order seafood towers, hire a DJ, and send me my portion of the bill. My fingers were cold when I opened the attached PDF. There was my full name listed under Family Contribution. Not guest, not daughter, not sister. Contribution. That word hit me harder than the amount. Because that was what I had become to them. A payment method with a heartbeat. I scrolled lower and saw the boarding time, the guest list, and one detail that made me laugh out loud in the ugliest way possible. My name was not on the guest list. They wanted my money on board, but not me. For a second, I imagined them laughing on that yacht. Brandon raising a glass, my parents smiling proudly, Chloe taking pictures for Instagram, everyone enjoying a party I helped pay for while pretending I didn't exist. My chest tightened so hard it felt physical. Then something in me went quiet. Not sad quiet, not broken quiet. The dangerous kind of quiet. I opened my banking app, sent exactly $1 and typed the note. I'm not on board. Then I opened every streaming account, every shared subscription, every backup card they had been using under my name, and I started revoking access one by one. Before I tell you what happened after they reported me for fraud, and what I said when they realized whose money they had been spending, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels. I didn't start by screaming. That's what surprised me most. In the past, I would have called my mother immediately, asked if the invoice was a mistake, waited for her to make me feel guilty, and probably ended up paying just to keep the peace. But that night, I didn't touch the call button. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and treated my family the same way I treated suspicious claims at work. I followed the paper trail. The first account was Netflix. My parents had been using my premium plan for 6 years. Then Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, Max, Spotify Family, a grocery delivery membership, cloud storage, and a roadside assistance plan my father swore he only used once or twice, even though I found 11 service calls under his vehicle. Then came the credit cards. I had added my mother as an authorized user years earlier after she cried about an emergency dental bill. I had added my father when his card mysteriously stopped working during a business trip. I had let Brandon use one backup card when he claimed he needed it for gas while getting back on his feet. Chloe had my food delivery login because she said ordering through mine gave her better discounts. They were all small things when taken separately. Together, they were a quiet little empire built on my unwillingness to disappoint them. I sat there clicking through statements, and the truth became humiliatingly clear. They didn't forget I existed. They remembered perfectly whenever my accounts made their lives easier. I canceled the authorized users first. Then I froze the backup cards. Then I changed passwords, logged out every device, canceled subscription sharing, and transferred every account to two-factor authentication only I controlled. With each click, I felt something strange, grief and relief at the same time. I still loved them. That was the miserable part. I loved people who could remember my billing cycle but not my birthday. When I finished, I sent one short email to the family group thread. Effective immediately, all accounts, cards, subscriptions, and memberships under my name are for my use only. Please make your own arrangements. I didn't mention the forgotten birthday. I didn't mention the invoice. I didn't beg them to understand. I simply stopped paying for people who treated me like a wallet with good manners. 47 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring until it stopped. Then came Dad. Then Brandon. Then Chloe. Then Mom again. Finally, the texts began. Mom wrote, Catherine, what is going on? Your father can't access Prime. Dad wrote, the gas card was declined. Fix it. Brandon wrote, why did Spotify kick me out during my workout? Are you serious? Chloe wrote, this is so petty. It's literally my show night. Not one person said happy belated birthday. Not one person asked why I was upset. They only noticed the locked doors because, for once, they were standing outside them. I placed my phone face down and laughed once, not because it was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I would have cried. Around midnight, Mom finally sent a voice message. Her tone was tight, fake soft, the voice she used when she wanted to sound hurt instead of angry. Catherine, sweetheart, I don't know what kind of mood you're in, but punishing the family over money is not like you. Brandon's birthday is important. You know how sensitive he is. I replayed it twice. Sensitive. Brandon was sensitive. I was apparently a utility company. I picked up the phone and typed back. My birthday was important too. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then Mom replied, don't start drama over that again. That was the moment my last bit of hesitation died. By morning, the family group chat had turned into a courtroom where I was both the defendant and the crime. My father opened with, you embarrassed your mother last night. She couldn't finish ordering decorations because your card was declined. Brandon followed with, nobody asked you to act psycho over a birthday. You're 31, not 7. Chloe added, you always do this. You wait until something is about Brandon, then make it about you. I stared at the screen, stunned by how quickly they found a way to make my boundaries sound like an attack. Then Dad called. This time, I answered. Catherine, he said. No greeting, no warmth. Turn everything back on. No. Silence. Then his voice dropped. Excuse me? No, Dad. I'm not paying for the yacht party. I'm not funding your subscriptions. I'm not keeping cards active for people who don't respect me. He exhaled sharply, like I was an employee refusing a direct order. We raised you better than this. I almost smiled. You raised me to be useful. That's different. His voice hardened. Don't get clever. Your mother is crying, Brandon is stressed, and Chloe says you're ruining the whole week. Interesting, I said. My birthday was last week. Did anybody cry then? He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any apology would have been. Then he said the sentence that confirmed everything. Your birthday isn't the issue right now. My hand tightened around the phone. Exactly. He tried again, angrier now. Family helps family. Family also remembers family? You're being ungrateful. For what? I asked. For being ignored 5 years in a row and invoiced for a party I wasn't invited to? He stumbled for half a second, which told me he knew. He knew I wasn't on the guest list. That was probably an oversight. No, Dad. An oversight is forgetting extra napkins. Leaving your daughter off the guest list while billing her $3,000 is a choice. He snapped. You have always been dramatic. Then Brandon grabbed the phone, or maybe Dad handed it to him because he thought the golden child could charm me back into obedience. Cat, come on, Brandon said, using the nickname I hated because he only used it when he wanted something. It's just $3,000. You make good money. Why are you being weird? Because I'm not your sponsor. He laughed. Sponsor? Please. You act like you're some victim. You don't have kids. You don't have a husband. What else are you spending money on? There it was. The family logic laid bare. Because I was single, my resources were public property. Because I had no children, my time belonged to them. Because I lived quietly and responsibly, they assumed I owed my stability to everyone louder and messier than me. I'm spending it on myself, I said. Try it sometime. Brandon's voice turned ugly. You know what? Keep your stupid dollar. I hope you enjoy being alone. Then he hung up. 10 minutes later, my bank sent me an alert. Suspicious activity reported by authorized user. I opened the notification and saw that my mother had called the credit card company claiming her access had been removed without permission. Then another alert came from a streaming service. Account access dispute initiated. They had reported me for fraud on my own accounts. For a full minute, I just sat there, staring at the screen. Then I laughed so hard tears came to my eyes. Not because it didn't hurt. It hurt deeply. But because my family had finally done what they always did emotionally, only this time, they had put it in writing. They accused me of stealing control over things that were mine. I forwarded everything to a secure folder, labeled it Miller Family Boundary File, and called my friend Nathan Brooks, who worked in compliance at a regional bank. When he answered, I said, "You are not going to believe what they just did." After I explained, Nathan went quiet, then said, "Catherine, do not delete anything. Screenshot every message, every alert, every invoice, every login attempt. They didn't just throw a tantrum. They created a record." That sentence changed the temperature in the room. A record. My family thought they were pressuring me. They were actually giving me evidence. By Friday, the panic had spread far beyond passwords, streaming apps, and declined cards. At first, I thought they would yell for a day, realize I was serious, and find their own way to pay for everything. But my family had never been good at accepting consequences when blaming me was easier. Brandon's yacht reservation required a final payment by noon, and apparently, Mom had assumed she could simply run it through the card I had frozen. When the charge bounced, the charter company emailed everyone on the planning thread with a polite but firm message. Final payment could not be processed. Please provide valid cardholder authorization within 24 hours to avoid cancellation. I knew because Mom accidentally copied me when she replied in all caps, "Please run it again. This card should work." I sat at my desk during lunch break, staring at that email, almost impressed by the arrogance. She wasn't asking me. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't even embarrassed. She was still trying to force my money through a locked door and seemed offended that the lock had worked. The yacht company responded again, saying the primary cardholder would need to authorize the transaction directly. For the first time in my life, a business policy defended my boundary better than my own family ever had. 10 minutes later, Brandon texted, "You're making me look poor in front of my friends." I replied, "Then pay like you're rich." He sent back, "You're pathetic." I didn't answer. Chloe posted an Instagram story with a black background and white text. "Some people will sabotage family happiness because they're bitter no one celebrates them." Under it, she added a little anchor emoji, just in case everyone needed help understanding the yacht reference. My face burned when I saw it, but I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and saved it in the folder Nathan had told me to keep. Then Brandon texted again. Mom says you're mentally unstable. Honestly, I'm starting to agree. That one hit differently, not because it was new, but because it was familiar. Whenever I resisted, I was dramatic. Whenever I cried, I was too sensitive. Whenever I asked for fairness, I was selfish. Whenever I set a boundary, I was unstable. They had a label ready for every emotion I was allowed to have, except obedience. I called Nathan Brooks during my afternoon break and tried to keep my voice steady. But the second he answered, everything cracked. Maybe I am overreacting, I said. Maybe normal people don't cut off their family over a birthday. Nathan didn't rush to comfort me with empty words. That was why I trusted him. He let the silence sit for a moment, then said, Catherine, listen to what you just said. This is not about a birthday. This is about 5 years of being erased, then receiving an invoice that proved they still expected payment from the person they erased. I pressed my fingers against my eyes. I hate that I still want them to care. Of course you do, he said gently. You're not a machine. Wanting love from your family doesn't make you weak. But people who benefit from your silence will always call your boundary cruel. That sentence stayed with me long after we hung up. That night, I did something small, symbolic, and painful. I opened the shared family photo album I had managed for years. There were Thanksgiving dinners where Brandon sat in the center of every picture. Christmas mornings where Chloe held expensive gifts while I smiled in the background, wearing the sweater I bought myself. Birthday dinners I had planned for everyone else. Vacations I helped pay for and barely appeared in because I was always the one taking the photo. I didn't delete anything. I wasn't trying to erase the past or pretend it hadn't shaped me. I simply removed myself as the album owner, downloaded a private copy, and changed the shared folder permission so nobody could add me back without asking. Then I renamed my own copy, before I chose myself. I cried after that. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly at my kitchen table with my laptop still open. It felt like grieving a version of myself who had waited so patiently for people who never hurried toward her. The next morning, Mom texted, "We need to meet. Your father says this has gone too far." I stared at the message while drinking coffee that had gone cold. A few minutes later, another text came in. "You owe this family a conversation." Not, "We owe you an apology." Not, "We need to understand." Just another debt they believed I carried. Nathan suggested I meet them only in public, only with proof, and only if I was ready to leave the moment they started attacking me. So I agreed to meet at a quiet cafe near the Annapolis harbor, not far from the marina where Brandon's yacht party was supposed to happen. Mom replied within seconds, "Good. Come ready to apologize." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Come ready to apologize. Not talk. Not listen. Not repair. Apologize. Something inside me settled into place with a calmness that almost scared me. I printed the invoice, the guest list without my name, the fraud alerts, the declined charge notifications, Chloe's Instagram story, Brandon's insults, and screenshots of every message where they demanded access before they asked how I felt. I put everything in a blue folder and wrote one word across the front: receipts. If my family wanted a meeting, they were going to get the most organized disappointment of their lives. They were already seated when I arrived, which somehow made the whole thing feel staged. Mom wore her pearl earrings and a cream cardigan, the outfit she chose whenever she wanted to look wounded, respectable, and impossible to blame. Dad sat beside her with his arms crossed, jaw tight, staring at the door like he had been waiting to discipline a late employee. Brandon was scrolling on his phone, sunglasses pushed onto his head, dressed like a man whose party had not just been financially rescued for years by the sister he mocked. Chloe had one leg crossed over the other, her lips pressed together in a thin line of irritation before I even sat down. No one stood. No one hugged me. No one said happy belated birthday. That absence landed on the table before any of us spoke. I placed the blue folder in front of me and sat down slowly. Mom began immediately. "Catherine, this behavior has been cruel." I almost laughed. Of all the opening lines I had imagined, that one was the most predictable. "Good morning to you too," I said. Dad leaned forward. "Don't be sarcastic. You froze cards, disrupted household accounts, humiliated your brother, upset your mother, and forced her to deal with fraud departments." "I didn't force her to report fraud on accounts she doesn't own." Mom's face tightened. I was confused. "No," I said calmly. "You were angry your free access ended." Brandon finally looked up from his phone. Oh my God. Here we go. St. Catherine and her tragic little birthday. My throat tightened, but I didn't let my face change. I opened the folder and slid the first page across the table. "This is the invoice you sent me, $3,000. Mom barely glanced at it. "We were all contributing." I slid the second page forward. "This is the yacht guest list. My name isn't on it." Chloe shifted in her chair. Dad looked at Mom. Brandon stopped pretending to text. For the first time since I arrived, nobody had an instant answer. I let the silence stretch long enough for them to feel it. Then I said, "You didn't forget to invite me. You remembered to bill me. That means I existed to you as a payment source, not a person." Mom's eyes narrowed. That is a very ugly way to interpret a simple mistake. I pulled out the screenshots and laid them one by one on the table like evidence in a trial. This is Brandon calling me psycho. This is Chloe saying I sabotage family happiness. This is Dad telling me my birthday isn't the issue. This is you telling me not to start drama over being forgotten for the 5th year in a row. This is the fraud alert after you tried to report me for removing access to my own accounts. And this is the declined yacht payment you tried to run after I had already told you no. Dad reached toward the papers, but I held them down with one hand. "No, you're going to listen." His face reddened. "You don't talk to your father like that." "Then act like one." The words came out quieter than I expected, but they hit hard. The table went completely still. Even the cafe around us seemed to fade into the background, cups clinking, espresso steaming, chairs scraping softly against the floor. Mom whispered, "How dare you?" I looked directly at her. "No, Mom, how dare you? How dare you teach me that love meant being useful? How dare you celebrate Brandon like he hung the moon while treating me like the bank that keeps the lights on? How dare you forget my birthday 5 years in a row and then send me an invoice 1 week later like I should be grateful to be included in the cost, but not the celebration?" Brandon leaned back with a bitter laugh, but I could tell he was uncomfortable now. "You're acting like we stole from you. You tried to spend on cards I pay. You used accounts I fund. You billed me for a party I wasn't invited to. Pick a softer word if it helps you sleep." Chloe muttered, "This is why nobody wants to celebrate you. You make everything intense." I turned to her. "No, Chloe. Nobody celebrates me because I made it easy not to." I smiled, paid, forgave, and pretended crumbs were enough. "I trained all of you to believe I would accept anything as long as you called it family. That ends now." Mom's voice started to shake, but it still sounded more offended than sorry. "So what do you want? For us to beg? Is that it? You want to sit here and punish us until we humiliate ourselves?" I shook my head. "I want nothing from you today. That's the point." Dad frowned. "Catherine, don't be ridiculous. Families fight. Families forgive. You don't just walk away because people make mistakes." "Mistakes?" I asked. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A pattern is forgetting your daughter's birthday 5 years in a row. A mistake is sending the wrong attachment. A pattern is expecting me to pay for things while leaving me out of them. A mistake is misunderstanding an account. A pattern is reporting fraud when I finally say no. For a second, Dad looked away. That was the closest he had come to shame. Brandon tapped the table with 2 fingers, impatient again. Okay. Speech over? Can we fix the yacht payment now or not? I actually laughed then. Not loudly. Just enough for all of them to understand that something between us had permanently shifted. Thank you, I said. That was the clearest answer you could have given me. Mom snapped, Brandon, stop. But it was too late. He had said the quiet part out loud. I gathered the papers back into the folder. From now on, I am your daughter only when you are willing to behave like my family. Until then, I am not your emergency fund, not your subscription plan, not your backup card, not your emotional punching bag, and not your invisible guest. Brandon's face hardened. So you're really going to ruin my birthday? I stood and pushed my chair in neatly. No, Brandon. I'm just not financing it. Mom reached for my wrist, but I stepped back before she touched me. Catherine, sit down. We are not finished. I looked at her hand still hovering in the air and said, You're right. You're not finished. You still have to pay the yacht company. Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard Brandon say, Is she serious? Dad said my name once, sharp and commanding, like he expected the old me to turn around. I didn't. Outside, the harbor air hit my face, cold and salty. My hands were shaking, but my spine felt straight for the first time in years. I had not won my family back. I had done something better. I had stopped losing myself to keep them comfortable. The fallout came faster than I expected, and it was messier than anything I could have planned. By that evening, the yacht company officially canceled Brandon's reservation because the final payment had not cleared and no authorized cardholder had approved the charge. Since the cancellation happened inside the penalty window, they kept the deposit Mom had placed on another card. Brandon lost the yacht, Mom lost the deposit, and the family lost the illusion that my money would quietly appear whenever their pride required it. At first, Brandon tried to save face by moving the party to a waterfront restaurant, but half of his invited guests suddenly had schedule conflicts once there was no private yacht, no open bar, and no curated Instagram moment. One of his friends posted a story from another boat that weekend with the caption, "Real captains pay their own way." I didn't know if it was aimed at him, but judging by Brandon's furious texts, he thought it was. Chloe's vague Instagram post disappeared after 2 cousins commented, "Wait, wasn't Catherine not even invited?" And, "Why was she paying if she wasn't on the guest list?" Apparently, the story had started spreading through the family faster than Mom could control it. My Aunt Diane called me on Monday morning. I almost didn't answer because I expected another lecture about forgiveness, but her voice was soft. "Catherine, honey, I just want to ask you one thing. Did they really bill you for Brandon's party when you weren't invited?" I closed my office door and said, "Yes." She went quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." That almost broke me more than the insults, because one sincere apology from the wrong person can make you realize how long you waited to hear it from the right ones. By Tuesday, Dad tried the practical route. He emailed me a spreadsheet titled Family Investment History. On it, he listed braces, school supplies, childhood medical bills, groceries, my share of the electric bill from when I was 16, and even gas used driving Catherine to school. At the bottom, he wrote, "Maybe you should remember who invested in you before acting like we owe you." I stared at that spreadsheet in disbelief. Then I replied with one sentence, "Parenting is not a loan." He didn't respond for 2 days. Mom tried guilt instead. She left voicemails saying she couldn't sleep, saying I had embarrassed her, saying the family was falling apart over nothing, saying Brandon had been humiliated in front of everyone. Not once did she say I had been humiliated first. Not once did she say, "I'm sorry we forgot you." Brandon tried anger. He texted, "Hope being right feels good when you die alone." Then, 10 minutes later, he sent, "You're seriously not going to help fix this?" That was Brandon in one sentence. Insult first, request second. Chloe tried reputation management. She wrote, "Can we at least agree not to tell people details? This makes everyone look bad." I replied only to that one. Then everyone should have behaved better. After that, I did exactly what Nathan advised. I sent one formal email to all four of them. Because fraud was reported on accounts under my legal name, and because attempted charges were made without my authorization, I am documenting all communication going forward. Do not use my payment information, accounts, memberships, identity, address, or personal details for any purpose. Any future attempt will be treated as unauthorized. The silence after that email was almost beautiful. Not peaceful exactly, but clean, like a room after smoke finally clears. For 2 full weeks, I blocked their numbers and let myself live inside my own life without being interrupted by someone else's emergency. I went to work. I cooked dinner. I slept through the night without waking up to angry messages. I took long walks by the harbor and watched boats move across the water without feeling that twist in my chest. I bought myself the birthday gift I had wanted for years, a weekend sailing course. Paid for by me, attended by me, celebrated by me. On the second day, while the instructor showed me how to adjust the mainsail, I realized something that made me smile in spite of everything. I had spent years waiting for my family to put me on board, but maybe the lesson was simpler than that. I could captain my own boat. Near the end of the second week, a handwritten letter arrived in my mailbox. Not a text, not a voicemail, not a dramatic group message. A letter. It was from Mom. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it at my kitchen table. The first line said, "I am writing this because calling you would let me interrupt you, and I have interrupted you enough." I read that sentence 3 times. The letter was not perfect. It still had defensive corners and careful wording. But for the first time, she admitted the truth plainly. She wrote that they had centered Brandon for years. She wrote that they had treated my reliability like permission. She wrote that they had remembered what I could provide more often than they remembered who I was. Dad sent a separate letter 2 days later. His was shorter, stiffer, and clearly painful for him to write. But one line mattered. "You were right. Parenting was not alone, and I was wrong to make it sound like one." Chloe sent a message from a new number saying she had deleted her posts and told 2 cousins the truth. She also wrote, "I don't think I understood how much we used you until you stopped letting us." Brandon sent nothing. No apology, no explanation, not even a fake peace offering. And honestly, that silence taught me something too. Some people miss your benefits before they miss your presence. You have to know the difference. Then Mom asked for one meeting. I agreed, but only under 3 conditions. No Brandon, no money discussion, and no pretending the yacht party was the real problem. Because it never was. The yacht was just the thing that finally made the truth too expensive for them to ignore. We met at the same harbor cafe, but this time only Mom, Dad, and Chloe came. Mom looked smaller without her performance of control. Dad looked tired. Chloe looked embarrassed in a way I had never seen before. For a while, nobody spoke. Then Mom placed an envelope on the table. Inside was a printed apology, signed by all 3 of them. Not a dramatic speech, not a perfect confession, but specific. They wrote that they had forgotten my birthday for 5 years. They wrote that sending me the yacht invoice was selfish and humiliating. They wrote that reporting fraud was wrong. They wrote that I had not abandoned the family by setting boundaries. They had pushed me away by treating my kindness like an obligation. I read every word slowly. Then Dad cleared his throat and said, "We also told your aunt and cousins the truth. Not every detail, but enough." That mattered. Not because I needed public revenge, but because toxic families love private apologies after public disrespect. I needed them to stop protecting the lie. Chloe looked at me and said, "I was jealous of you." I blinked. She swallowed hard. "Not because they favored Brandon, because you always seemed like you didn't need anyone. I thought that meant you were cold. Now I think maybe you were just tired." For the first time, I saw something human behind her sharpness. I nodded, but I didn't rush to comfort her. That was another old habit I refused to carry. Mom asked quietly, "Can we fix this?" I looked out toward the water. A small white sailboat moved across the harbor, steady and bright against the gray afternoon. "Maybe," I said, "but not by pretending it didn't happen, and not quickly." Dad nodded. "What do you need?" I took a breath. For the next 6 months, I'm staying low contact. No financial requests, no shared accounts, no guilt messages, no using family as a weapon. If you want a relationship with me, you build it with respect, not emergencies. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't use them to control the room. "Okay," she whispered. "And Brandon?" Chloe asked. "Brandon can reach out when he's ready to apologize without asking for anything." He didn't, by the way. Not for months. And that silence taught me something too. Some people miss your benefits before they miss your presence. You have to know the difference. My family did not magically become perfect. This is not one of those stories where everyone hugs at the end and years of damage disappear over coffee. But they did lose something. They lost unlimited access to me. They lost the version of Catherine who paid, smiled, absorbed, and came back every time someone said, "But we're family." And I gained something far more important than revenge. I gained proof that I could survive their disappointment. I learned that family is not a title people get to wave while treating you like a resource. Family is built through fairness, effort, memory, and respect. Sometimes, to save yourself, you have to let the old version of your family collapse so something healthier has a chance to exist, even if that healthier family begins with only you and the people who truly show up. Don't be afraid of being called ungrateful when all you're doing is taking back your dignity. Don't be afraid of silence after years of noise, and don't keep paying emotional invoices for people who never even put your name on the guest list. So tell me honestly, if your family forgot your birthday for 5 years, then demanded $3,000 for someone else's yacht party, would you forgive them, cut them off, or send exactly $1 like I did? Comment your answer below.